So as always, I would say the evolutionist hides behind one of the deepest forms of sophistry that there is. So as far as the philosophical proposition is
This guy calling me a sophist is so rich. Again, I mean, you'll get it after we conclude the video. You'll see, I really should have just stuck with humans are so obviously the product of evolution, and so are all other animals.
No, dude.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is a thinker called Thinking. Today I bring you a controversy that could legitimately delegitimize the entire evolutionary worldview. In a few minutes, I will play for you a montage of a famous evolutionist being confronted with perhaps what may be the greatest flaw in evolution, and you will see the grand evidence for yourself. Now, before I get into it, I just want to say that no matter how vicious these debates may become, and no matter how wild the comment section gets, please have compassion for your fellow human beings. I would also like to acknowledge that the man's name in the video is Eric Peterson, but I may be referring to him as the evolutionist or the famous atheist, because I do not wish to leverage any personal attacks. Unfortunately, evolution is a highly contentious issue, and I apologize for any stress. Now in this video, I want to address a particular exchange that happened. I had made a video about a specific evolutionary controversy, featuring a debate between the famous atheist and a Christian. Then, the famous atheist made a commentary video about my video, which was commenting on his original video. Now back to the controversy I'm speaking of, the atheist had claimed that human beings are by definition animals.
So now that we've proven humans are animals, what do you want to talk about? But you can go even simpler than that. It's a multicellular eukaryote with an internal digestive system. That's what a human is. All animals are that. If you look at any animal, no matter what it is, they will all be that. And so are we. And there's nothing about us that you can say fundamentally puts us in a different category.
And you have to understand that he specifically said, and I quote, "There's nothing about us that you can say fundamentally puts us in a different category." Of course, the us being human beings and the category being the animals. And this is the moment where I became confused. Is this just a technical definition so that we may conduct biology more efficiently? Or is this an ultimate truth claim about the nature of mankind? And spoiler alert, it appears as if the evolutionist really does mean this to be an all-encompassing claim about the nature of humanity. Also, I might add that the other atheist in the comment section went as far as to say that our ability to differentiate human beings from animals is simply a learned concept. Because there is nothing that legitimately distinguishes us from the animals, apparently, or the insects, if you can imagine. So, allegedly, when you differentiate between your friend and a caterpillar, that's because you learned a concept. Now, at the time when I made the first video, I felt that, the video was relatively simple, but of course, as the story goes, when I checked the video about a day later, the comment section had erupted into turmoil. It's as if the atheist made a concerted effort to prove once and for all that human beings are animals by bringing forth the most wild comments upon me. Now, actually, when I started to read these comments and reply to these comments, something very interesting happened. I went on a bit of a journey of thought, and I'd come to realize something very important. This biological definition of an animal that the atheist had originally said, which was, and I quote, that human beings are multicellular eukaryotes with an internal digestive system.
I told you what human beings are, multicellular eukaryotes with an internal digestive system.
This definition is actually only dealing with the flesh. Now, since human beings are also animate, and we have consciousness, sentience, and inspiration, etc., it would seem as if this definition cannot satisfy some of the most important aspects of humanity. And if the definition cannot encapsulate some of our most important attributes, then why should I take it as an ultimate truth claim or a definition of what I am as a human being? And we must remember that there does not seem to be anyone among us human beings that can make an ultimate and omnipotent truth claim regarding the complete nature of humanity, which would include myself. Now, please remember that I had said previously this could indeed delegitimize the entire evolutionary worldview, which makes me believe that the reason why the atheist became so enraged in the comment section, and why the famous atheist made a commentary video about me, is because somewhere within them, they know just how serious this controversy is for them. And let's remember the famous atheist's video was entitled, "You Can't Philosophy Away Evolution." But when we consider the situation, it would appear that the evolutionists have philosophized away the evolution themselves. This is to say the evolutionists have blown up their own category of humanity. And although the people in the comment section were so vicious toward me, you cannot deny that we can certainly catch the famous atheist in real time thinking about the prospect of his own circular logic during his very own commentary video. And the atheist may have severely contradicted himself, demonstrating just how overbearing and assumptive the evolutionists have become. You will see this firsthand when I play you the contradictory montage. Then you will see the proof that evolution is not necessarily functioning on a purely scientific basis, and that it must also be functioning on a largely philosophical basis. By the way, it's not just me saying this. The video was even picked up by another famous YouTuber named Jim Bob, who also demonstrated the atheist considering the controversy.
Which means humans are the product of animal evolution.
Dude, he didn't even catch himself. Dude, I hate to do this to you, Peterson, but you deserve a slow-mo. You get a slow-mo.
And just one more time, I want to extend my thanks to the gentleman, Mr. Peterson. I don't want it to look like I'm attempting to drag this man through the mud. It's not like that at all, and I hope that nobody will have ill will toward him. Anybody who helps to demonstrate the problems with evolution has truly done a good deed. So instead of having any animosity toward the gentleman, perhaps we should genuinely appreciate him. And now I will play for you the montage of contradiction. Now, when you're watching the next clip, I want to give you a type of philosophical proposition here. That as human beings, whenever we try to define what a human being is or understand what a human being is, we will never be able to hold the entirety of the concept of what a human being is in our mind. If we try to claim that we know the entire concept of what a human being is, then inevitably we will find ourselves focusing on a couple aspects of what a human being is and completely overlooking other aspects of what humanity is.
But if you're gonna, that's it. That's all you're going to say about that. That applies to you too. So therefore, you don't know what a human is because you cannot simultaneously in your head hold all of the possible qualifiers or whatever for what a human is. Why are we saying this?
Or is he just referring to a technical definition that he knows to be ontologically limited? So is
What's the limitation?
it just a scientific definition or some type of omnipotent view of what human beings essentially are?
Yes, I claim omnipotence by saying that humans are animals. Like, you can think of this philosophically. I don't know.
Scientists are good at making metaphysical categories. I don't think so.
Right. So when it comes to a human being, which is a physical thing that exists in the world, science is not about doing metaphysics. You can't scientifically study metaphysics. Can you metaphysically study science? I don't know. Now, you go ahead. You do your metaphysics. I'll grant you that scientists aren't doing the metaphysics, but you're not going to be able to appeal to anything. If metaphysical categories have to be, what are they satisfied by? By evidence, by rigor, by I don't know, by constructing arguments or pointing to evidence. Well, again, in the video we're watching, I did skip over that. I haven't described that yet. We do get into it. But absolutely, we can do all of that. However, science is going to be the tool that gives you the knowledge in order to well inform whatever your metaphysical stance about humans is. You know, I really should have just stuck with humans are so obviously the product of evolution, and so are all other animals, which means humans are the product of animal evolution, which means we're animals. I could see how somebody might think that's a little bit annoying because then a philosophical argument turns into a debate about whether or not evolution is true.
However, he makes a very serious omission.
Yeah, because I have all of the facts, and you and this guy I'm talking to do not. There is nothing either of you can possibly present that's going to blow up this categorizing a human as an animal.
Which could easily lead us to the conclusion that evolution predominantly functions as a philosophy. The first question is this. In the original video, the topic of controversy was related to the following question. Is a human being an animal? The evolutionist claims to look at the matter from a purely scientific standpoint, but if we review the evolutionist's own words and the captions of contradiction that I superimposed on this video, you can see the evolutionists explain that science cannot do metaphysics. And of course, I agree with this, because the scientific method is simply incapable of doing metaphysics. But then, after acknowledging all this, the evolutionist does a mental backflip and claims that science is the backbone of metaphysical knowledge, even though that cannot possibly mean anything due to the scientific limitations, otherwise known as epistemic limits. And after all of this, he actually says something about how the evolutionary theory is the exact principle to fundamentally and ultimately define all of human existence, as if the evolutionists had completely forgotten the meaning of metaphysics in this exact context. The omission is utterly shocking, and yet so typical at the same time. The evolutionist philosophically believes that you are nothing more than evolution, which can only be an act of philosophy, as you would have to regard evolution as the absolute guiding force of life itself. And this is what we have been trying to tell the evolutionists this whole time, that they appeal to science to make philosophical or metaphysical claims. Now, I personally acknowledge that I don't myself have the omnipotent ability to ultimately define human beings, but I will at least attempt to rationalize the matter so that we may understand the controversy. I would first start by asking myself, what is the opposite of the original claim, which was that a human being is an animal? Perhaps the fundamental distinguishment lies in humanity's need to maintain virtue, as we can at least rationalize that a human being must remain partly good to survive in civilization, which involves many aspects that are distinct from the animal world. And if the human being is a being that centers on virtue, this would mean that our fundamental fulfillment would be tied to virtue. And conversely, if our entire civilization became far too unvirtuous, then we may very well have a societal collapse. So if any of this were true, then our ultimate and fundamental existence would be of an entirely different purpose if compared to the ways of the wild animals. And I can already imagine what the atheist would say about this, but please keep in mind that to even discuss whether or not the morality of human beings is similar or completely dissimilar to the animals is already a philosophical topic, to which can only be satisfied by metaphysical philosophy. Now, if we review the original video, the reason why the Christian became so upset in the first place was due to a philosophical conflict. The Christian is saying that his religion tells him he is not an animal, because he firmly believes himself to be in the image of God. Therefore, he cannot be an animal. And of course, this would suggest that humanity is bound to a higher virtue. Now, this is the point where we should understand the controversy to be a simple one. Why does the evolutionist have a problem to begin with? If the evolutionist is just simply a science teacher, then what business does he have to try to tell the Christian that he is fundamentally an animal? In other words, the evolutionist seems to clearly tell him that it is improper for the Christian to contemplate beyond the evolutionary worldview. And again, this is the problem. So is the evolutionist a science teacher, or is the evolutionist a philosophical instructor, who is supposed to philosophically teach you what you fundamentally are as a human being? If the wires are not crossed, then why would there be any disagreement in the first place? And this is the nature of the controversy. Unless the evolutionist is willing to claim, and I do understand what I'm about to say is going to sound sensational, but just for the purpose of the debate, unless the evolutionist is willing to claim that ultimately human beings are godless animals, then he cannot override the spiritual belief of other people through a scientific fact. Now please consider this: if human beings cannot scientifically prove the existence of God, and likewise neither can we disprove the existence of God, then it cannot be a scientific fact that human beings are godless animals. It's as if a group of people made a scientific study of a subject that ultimately cannot be proven by science. And again, whether you believe in a specific religion or not, this deals with matters of virtue and ethics that reach an epic proportion. Because to say that a human being is a godless animal is to say that morality and virtue do not fundamentally exist. So imagine the reaction when a person learns that his biology teacher is actually secretly telling him that he is a godless beast, and that goodness and virtue do not tangibly exist. Does that sound like a valid science to you, or does that sound like a philosophy? This has been a Thinker Caught Thinking. Please like, share, and subscribe to this amazing video.